Most of us grew up hearing the same thing. If you want strong bones, drink more milk. But what if I told you there's a food, a simple natural food that contains more absorbable calcium than milk, supports muscle strength, and might even help prevent fractures as you age? It's not a supplement. It's not fortified. It's a whole food that's been consumed for thousands of years across Asia and the Mediterranean. And the science now shows it's more effective than milk at delivering the calcium your body actually uses. Here's the kicker. You can drink all the milk you want, but without the right cofactors, like vitamin K2, magnesium, and certain peptides, your body can't properly shuttle that calcium into your bones and muscles. In fact, some of it may end up in places you don't want it, like your arteries or joints. That's not just inefficient, it's dangerous. And this is where today's topic becomes powerful, because we're not just talking about calcium. We're talking about calcium metabolism. And that means understanding how your body absorbs, uses, and retains calcium in ways that impact your strength, mobility, and even longevity. Bone is living tissue. Every day, your body is remodeling it, breaking down old bone and building new bone in response to stress, nutrition, hormones, and even sleep. If you're not giving your body the right inputs, especially as you age, this balance can tilt toward loss instead of growth. But the good news is this: with just a few tweaks to your nutrition, you can dramatically improve how your bones and muscles respond. That means fewer fractures, better balance, and more strength, not just in the gym, but in life. In this video, we'll explore 6 science-backed strategies to strengthen bones and muscles using one unexpected food, plus the tools to optimize how your body uses calcium more efficiently than dairy ever could. Ron, I just had to send that video because we'll cover the one food richer in calcium than milk and why your body uses it better, how to increase calcium absorption naturally, the 2 cofactors critical for bone and muscle strength, why inflammation blocks bone growth and how to fix it, a breakfast mistake that weakens bones, and the best timing protocol for calcium-rich meals. Let's get into the science. The food that quietly outperforms milk in calcium content and absorption is sesame seeds, especially in their whole or ground form, like tahini. Just 1 tablespoon of sesame seeds contains about 88 milligrams of calcium. Compare that to a tablespoon of milk, which offers only 19 milligrams. But it's not just about quantity, it's about bioavailability. Milk contains calcium, yes, but it also contains casein, which can bind to calcium and make it harder to absorb. Sesame seeds, on the other hand, contain calcium in a highly bioavailable form, plus magnesium, phosphorus, and healthy fats, all of which support calcium transport into bones and muscle tissue. Here's what the research shows. A 2013 study published in the International Journal of Rheumatic Diseases found that sesame seed supplementation significantly reduced markers of inflammation and improved physical function in patients with osteoarthritis. So why does this matter? Because inflammation is one of the hidden saboteurs of bone and muscle health. And sesame doesn't just bring the minerals, it also brings anti-inflammatory compounds like sesamine and sesamol. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Calcium doesn't work in isolation. For calcium to be effectively deposited into bone, without K2, calcium can drift into arteries, raising the risk of calcification. And guess what? While milk has virtually no K2, sesame pairs well with K2-rich foods like fermented soy, natto, hard cheeses, and even egg yolks. If you're looking for a practical tool, here's one to try. Start your day with a bone-boosting breakfast bowl. Take 1 tablespoon of tahini, ground sesame paste, mix it into Greek yogurt or a plant-based kefir, top with chopped figs, another calcium-rich food, sprinkle with ground flax or chia for omega-3s, and a dash of cinnamon for blood sugar regulation. This single bowl gives you calcium, magnesium, healthy fats, fiber, and a synergistic combination of micronutrients that your bones will thank you for. You might be wondering, can a small seed really compete with dairy, fortified juices, or supplements? The answer is yes, especially when you eat it in the right context. Remember, the body is a system. It's not just how much calcium you eat, it's how well your body is set up to use it. And here's a simple comparison. 1 cup of milk equals tilde 300 mils calcium. 3 tablespoons of sesame seeds equals tilde 264 mils calcium, with higher absorption in many cases due to better nutrient synergy. So if you've been relying on milk as your go-to calcium source, it might be time to rethink that strategy. Milk isn't harmful for most people, but it's not uniquely essential either. There are smarter, more efficient ways to build a stronger skeletal and muscular system. And sesame is one of those quiet powerhouses hiding in plain sight. If this kind of practical science is helping you rethink how you nourish your body, consider subscribing. We dive into neuroscience, nutrition, and performance tools every week, and I'd love to have you grow with this community. Coming up next, we'll explore why calcium absorption matters more than calcium intake, and the 2 overlooked nutrients that determine whether the calcium you consume ends up in your bones or your bloodstream. Here's a truth that's often missed in mainstream nutrition. It's not how much calcium you consume, it's how much you absorb and retain. And that hinges on 2 key nutrients, magnesium and vitamin D. Let's start with magnesium. Think of magnesium as the gatekeeper for calcium. It regulates how much calcium enters your cells, especially in bones and muscles. Without enough magnesium, your body can't properly utilize calcium, no matter how much you consume. In fact, calcium may stay in the bloodstream longer than it should, increasing the risk of vascular calcification, where calcium is deposited in the arteries instead of your skeleton. A 2013 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that magnesium intake was positively associated with higher bone mineral density, especially in older adults. And it makes sense. Magnesium is a cofactor for the enzyme that converts vitamin D into its active form, and that active form is essential for calcium absorption in the intestines. Which brings us to vitamin D. Most people think of vitamin D as a sunshine vitamin, but biologically, it's more like a hormone. It signals your gut to absorb calcium from food, and without it, calcium largely passes through your system unused. So here's what's happening in your body. You eat a calcium-rich food. Vitamin D, if present and activated, signals the gut to absorb the calcium. Magnesium then helps shuttle calcium into the right tissues, bones and muscles, and keeps it out of the wrong ones, arteries and soft tissue. This is why high calcium diets without sufficient vitamin D or magnesium often fail to improve bone health, and sometimes even increase the risk of kidney stones and arterial plaques. Now, let's make this practical. A simple protocol. In the morning, expose your skin to sunlight for 10 to 20 minutes, ideally before 10 a.m. This boosts natural vitamin D synthesis, which primes your gut to absorb calcium throughout the day. With your largest calcium-containing meal, add a source of magnesium. Leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, avocado, or even a magnesium supplement if needed. And at night, avoid high doses of calcium supplements. Studies show that taking calcium late in the day without cofactors can lead to poor absorption and disturbed sleep. Also worth noting, stress depletes magnesium rapidly. Chronic stress leads to magnesium loss through urine, weakening the very system you're trying to strengthen. So part of strengthening your bones and muscles also involves calming your nervous system. Practice like breath work, mindfulness, or even magnesium-rich Epsom salt baths can restore balance from both ends. Now, here's a question worth asking yourself. Am I feeding my bones or just eating for numbers on a label? Because if your daily habits don't support the cofactors like magnesium and vitamin D, then even the best calcium source won't do its job. Coming up, we'll talk about a nutrient you've likely overlooked, vitamin K2, the traffic director that tells calcium where to go, and why without it, your best calcium foods can still lead to long-term harm. And if you're getting value from this breakdown of nutrition meets neuroscience, I invite you to give the video a like. It helps this content reach more people who are trying to take control of their health with real practical science. If calcium is the building block and vitamin D is the key that unlocks absorption, then vitamin K2 is the traffic controller. It decides where calcium actually ends up in your body. And this matters a lot. Here's what's happening in your body when you eat calcium-rich foods. Once absorbed, calcium doesn't inherently know where to go. It can settle in bones, where you want it, or in soft tissues like arteries, kidneys, and joints, where you don't. That's where vitamin K2 steps in. Vitamin K2 activates a protein called osteocalcin, which binds calcium and pulls it into your bone matrix. At the same time, it activates matrix clay protein, MGP, which prevents calcium from accumulating in arterial walls. It's this dual role, guiding calcium into bone and keeping it out of soft tissue, that makes K2 a critical part of the calcium equation. In a 2004 study published in Thrombosis and Hemostasis, researchers found that people with higher K2 intake had significantly less arterial calcification and nearly 50% lower risk of coronary heart disease. And a Dutch study published in the Journal of Nutrition tracked over 4,800 people for 10 years and found that K2, not K1, was associated with stronger bones and reduced mortality. So why haven't we heard more about it? Because it's not widely present in the modern Western diet. Vitamin K1, found in leafy greens, is common, but it's not easily converted into K2 in the body. The best sources of K2 are traditional fermented foods, natto, a Japanese fermented soybean product, hard cheeses like Gouda and Edam grass-fed egg yolks, liver, and certain animal fats. Most people today don't eat these regularly, and that's part of the problem. Here's a practical tool. If you're consuming high calcium foods, whether it's milk, sesame, or supplements, pair them with K2-rich foods. For example, a salad topped with hard cheese or scrambled eggs cooked in grass-fed butter. This isn't just culinary, it's biochemical synergy. For those with restricted diets, a K2, MK7 supplement, typically 90 to 200 mg per day, may be worth discussing with your healthcare provider, especially if you're taking vitamin D or calcium supplements, because those increase your calcium load, and without K2, you risk it being misdirected. Here's an analogy. Calcium is like bricks. Vitamin D brings the bricks to the construction site. But without K2, there's no blueprint. The bricks get dumped anywhere, and sometimes in the wrong place. K2 provides the instruction manual. It tells your body, put calcium here, not there. And when you combine K2 with magnesium and D3, you've created the conditions for calcium to strengthen your frame instead of silently harming it. Now, let me ask, have you ever thought about where the calcium in your body is going? Because that's the question that determines whether you're building a resilient structure or quietly setting the stage for disease. If this level of detail in science is helping you reframe how you approach your nutrition, feel free to subscribe. These videos are designed to help you think deeper, act smarter, and live stronger, one protocol at a time. And just like that, that's the protocol. Take an agenda, take the death drug, get one protocol at a time. In the next section, we're going to explore something surprising: how chronic inflammation disrupts calcium metabolism, and the foods and habits that silently erode bone strength even when your calcium intake looks perfect on paper. If you've ever wondered why some people still lose bone mass despite eating calcium-rich foods and taking supplements, the answer often lies beneath the surface, in chronic, low-grade inflammation. Here's what the science reveals. Inflammation doesn't just affect your joints or your immune system. It also activates a process called osteoclastogenesis, the formation of cells that break down bone. In other words, inflammation flips a switch that speeds up bone resorption, the breakdown side of bone remodeling, while slowing down osteoblast activity, the process responsible for building new bone. Over time, this imbalance creates a silent erosion of bone density. A 2015 paper in Nature Reviews Rheumatology outlined how inflammatory cytokines, such as interleukin-6, ILE6, and tumor necrosis factor alpha, TNF-AP, directly stimulate osteoclasts and reduce bone formation. These same cytokines are elevated in people with chronic stress, poor sleep, high sugar intake, and even mild digestive issues. And here's the kicker. This inflammatory response not only weakens bones, it also makes muscles more insulin resistant and less able to recover after physical stress. So if your goal is strength, stability, or longevity, ignoring inflammation is a critical mistake. Let's make this practical. One of the most common dietary drivers of inflammation is the imbalance between omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. While omega-6 fats, found in seed oils and processed snacks, are necessary in small amounts, most people consume them in excess without enough anti-inflammatory omega-3s to balance them. A solution: opt for anti-inflammatory fats that support both brain health and bone regeneration. So, our response to inflammatory fats decreases our clotting and uptake of vascular vitamin A and vitamin D. This means fatty fish like sardines, mackerel, and salmon, rich in omega-3s and vitamin D, flax seeds and chia seeds, plant-based omega-3s with added fiber benefits, extra virgin olive oil, a source of polyphenols with proven anti-inflammatory effects. Here's a tool to implement. Use the 3-to-1 plate rule for inflammation control. At each major meal, make sure for every one source of processed fat or carb, like bread or fried items, you include 3 anti-inflammatory items, such as leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, wild-caught fish, berries, or fermented foods. This isn't about strict restriction. It's about building an internal environment where your bones can thrive by reducing the cellular signals that tell your body to break them down. Another overlooked source of inflammation: poor sleep. A study in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research, 2017, found that even short-term sleep deprivation increased bone resorption markers. Why? Because disrupted sleep raises cortisol, a stress hormone that, in excess, breaks down both muscle and bone tissue. So if you're trying to rebuild your structure but burning the candle at both ends, you're fighting your own biology. Here's a question to reflect on. Are you feeding your bones while inflaming them at the same time? Because if your diet or lifestyle keeps your body in a state of low-grade stress, even the best calcium plan won't stick. In the next section, we're going to tackle a common and counterproductive nutrition habit, one that many people do at breakfast that actually blocks calcium absorption and reduces the effectiveness of their entire bone supporting routine. And if you've made it this far and you're resonating with these insights, I invite you to comment below with one strategy you're planning to implement. It's not just about information, it's about action. And your comment might inspire someone else to take the first step too. Breakfast sets the tone for your metabolism, but one common habit is quietly sabotaging your bone health. Here it is: consuming high phytate grains and caffeine together without any buffering nutrients. Let me explain. Many popular breakfast foods, like whole grain cereals, bran muffins, oatmeals, and even health breads, contain phytic acid, a naturally occurring compound found in seeds, grains, and legumes. While phytates have some benefits, they also bind to minerals like calcium, magnesium, zinc, and iron in the gut, and inhibit their absorption. Now, combine that with coffee or tea, both of which contain polyphenols, and caffeine, known to modestly reduce calcium retention, especially when consumed with or directly after calcium-rich meals. Here's what the research shows. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, 2001, found that women who consumed more than 300 milligrams of caffeine per day, around 2 to 3 cups of coffee, had significantly lower bone density, especially if their calcium intake was inadequate. And when caffeine was consumed with high phytate foods, the calcium blocking effects were even more pronounced. To be clear, coffee isn't inherently bad for bones. In fact, in moderate doses, it may offer some neuroprotective benefits, but timing and what it's paired with makes a huge difference. So here's the issue. When your first meal of the day includes a phytate-rich cereal, paired with a large cup of coffee, and no real source of calcium or its cofactors, you're not just missing an opportunity, you're creating a mineral deficit that's hard to recover from the rest of the day. Let's make it practical. A simple morning protocol to support calcium metabolism. Start with a buffer. Before your first coffee, consume a small, mineral-rich food, like a spoonful of tahini, a hard-boiled egg, or plain yogurt. This slows caffeine absorption and supplies bioavailable calcium and fat-soluble vitamins. If you eat grains, soak them first. Overnight soaking or sprouting reduces phytic acid content significantly, making the minerals more accessible. Add vitamin C. A small orange, kiwi, or bell pepper at breakfast enhances iron and calcium absorption by creating a more acidic environment in the gut. Wait 45 to 60 minutes after calcium-rich meals before having coffee or tea. This gives your body time to absorb key minerals without interference. Alternatively, build a bonadillin breakfast like this. A base of plain Greek yogurt or kefir, calcium plus probiotics, a tablespoon of tahini or chia seeds, extra calcium and magnesium, a few slices of kiwi or orange, vitamin C, optional, a boiled egg or hard cheese, protein plus vitamin K2. Hold off on coffee until mid-morning. This may seem like a small shift, but it aligns with your body's natural rhythm of digestion and mineral metabolism. When you front load your day with usable calcium and its cofactors, you create the hormonal and nutritional conditions for stronger bones, improved muscle recovery, and better energy regulation throughout the day. Here's a question to consider. Is your morning fueling your frame or weakening it before the day even begins? Most people think they're doing healthy things at breakfast, but unless the timing and combinations are dialed in, they're unknowingly creating a mineral mismatch. In the next section, we'll wrap with one more powerful concept: timing calcium-rich meals with your circadian biology and movement patterns to accelerate bone and muscle strength. And we'll tie all 6 insights together into a clear, actionable daily strategy. Most people think of calcium as a static nutrient, something you get enough of throughout the day. But what if I told you that when you consume calcium and how you pair it with movement can dramatically influence how much of it actually gets deposited into your bones and muscles? Welcome to the science of nutrient timing and how your circadian biology plays a direct role in calcium metabolism. Let's begin with a simple principle. Your bones respond to stress and load, and they remodel based on timing. Your body is constantly deciding where to allocate minerals. And studies show that calcium absorption, osteoblast activity, bone building, and muscular protein synthesis follow a circadian rhythm, meaning they rise and fall across the day. A 2014 study published in Osteoporosis International found that bone turnover markers peak at night and are lowest in the morning. However, calcium absorption efficiency is highest during the day, particularly when paired with light physical activity like walking or strength training. So here's the key. If you consume a calcium-rich meal before or after exercise, your body is far more likely to shuttle that calcium into bone and muscle tissue, especially when cofactors like magnesium, vitamin D, and K2 are present. Here's a protocol to consider. Mid-morning or lunchtime workout. Aim to eat your most calcium-dense meal within 60 to 90 minutes post-exercise. This takes advantage of increased bone sensitivity to loading and nutrient uptake. Doing weight-bearing activity, walking, lifting, yoga. Pair it with a meal that includes bioavailable calcium, fat-soluble vitamins, and some protein. Think tahini with eggs, sardines on toast, or a yogurt-based bowl. Avoid high-dose calcium at night. Bone resorption, the breakdown phase, is naturally elevated during sleep. Flooding the system with calcium late in the day may not lead to optimal deposition, and it can interfere with melatonin and deep sleep, especially if taken in supplement form. This is why athletes and older adults benefit most from syncing calcium intake with physical activity. The combination of mechanical loading plus nutrient timing amplifies the signal to build stronger, denser bone. And this doesn't mean you need to lift heavy weights every day. Even a brisk 20-minute walk after lunch, done consistently, improves calcium uptake and stimulates bone growth. Bone tissue responds to strain, not just intensity. That means frequency and timing are just as powerful as the load itself. Let's also zoom out for a second. There's a psychological benefit to this too. When you pair movement with nutrition, when you eat intentionally around your activity, you create a feedback loop of care and momentum. You stop just checking boxes and start aligning your behavior with your biology. So ask yourself, am I stacking my habits or scattering them? Because stacking calcium with movement, light exposure, and cofactor-rich foods isn't just a strategy, it's a message to your body. Build, repair, thrive. Here's your quick implementation guide. Morning, 10 to 20 min sunlight plus light movement. Midday, bone-nourishing meal with calcium, magnesium, K2, and protein. Afternoon, brief walk or resistance training, even body weight. Post-workout, reinforce with nutrient-dense snack or meal. Yogurt with tahini, salmon salad, or leafy greens with nuts and seeds. Evening, avoid calcium-heavy meals or supplements close to bedtime. Coming up next, we'll bring all of this together, a complete recap of the 6 key insights, the protocols that support stronger bones and muscles, and a challenge for you to try one powerful habit starting today. Let's zoom out. You've just learned that building stronger bones and muscles isn't about drinking more milk or popping a generic calcium pill. It's about understanding the system, the biochemical choreography that governs how calcium is absorbed, where it goes, and how your lifestyle either supports or sabotages that process. Let's recap the 6 insights we covered. Sesame seeds, particularly in forms like tahini, deliver more calcium per tablespoon than milk, with greater bioavailability and added anti-inflammatory compounds. Calcium absorption depends on magnesium and vitamin D. Without these cofactors, most of your calcium won't make it into your bones. Vitamin K2 is the critical traffic director that sends calcium to bones and away from arteries. Without it, calcium can actually become harmful. Chronic inflammation from diet, stress, or poor sleep accelerates bone loss by increasing bone breakdown and weakening muscle repair. Breakfast mistakes like pairing phytate-rich grains with coffee can block calcium absorption at the most critical time of day. Timing matters. Syncing calcium-rich meals with movement and daylight enhances absorption and bone remodeling. Aligning your behavior with your biology. Now here's the deeper insight. Your bones and muscles aren't just scaffolding. They are living, adaptive systems that respond to your choices, not in dramatic bursts, but in consistent, subtle signals over time. Every walk you take after a mineral-rich meal, every seed you sprinkle into your breakfast bowl, every time you swap stress and processed fats for recovery and micronutrients, you're reinforcing your structure, cell by cell. And that means you have more power than you think. Because muscle mass isn't just about strength, it's about metabolic stability. And bone density isn't just about avoiding fractures, it's about mobility, energy, and independence as you age. This isn't just about health, it's about freedom. So here's your challenge. Tomorrow morning, change one thing. Start your day with a calcium-forward, cofactor-rich meal, something as simple as yogurt with tahini and fruit. Then something that lasts longer with protein and fruit. And then something that lasts longer with protein and fruit. Delay your coffee by 30 to 60 minutes and add 5 minutes of movement, a walk, some squats, or sunlight exposure. Try that for one day. Then see how it feels to build on it. And if you're looking for a roadmap to build lasting physical resilience, you're in the right place. This channel is dedicated to helping you apply neuroscience, nutrition, and behavioral science to real life in a way that's grounded, practical, and empowering. If this video brought you value, I'd love for you to join this growing community. Like, comment with the habit you're starting today, and subscribe for weekly protocols that sharpen your mind and strengthen your body. Your biology is listening. Now is your chance to guide it with precision, with science, and with care. You've got this.